when you build a long-term relationship with your clients, you build the trust, you build the relationship, the needs, and it helps you become a more of a solution type of seller for your client than just throwing things your clients left and right that might not necessarily fit within their needs. As a leader in sales, I like to lead and teach my sellers, my team, to be entrepreneurial, to essentially think for themselves. That they run their own P&L, that they're in charge of their business, so their clients, their tasks, their needs at hand, etc. That is their business. That is what he or she should be responsible for, and to look at it as, how can I work within my business and grow today, grow tomorrow. I don't micromanage per se and stay on top of the sellers where they're uncomfortable or too much where I don't think I need to. And with that entrepreneurial thinking and entrepreneurial spirit of leadership, um, my team, my sellers should continue to grow their business where I don't have to be on them day to day. However, if I do see a slack or some sort of fall within the numbers, I do know where to kind of swoop in, so to speak, and become more hands-on managing that seller and that team. Some of the other things I think about in my leadership style of sellers, I want my sellers to think in a consultative approach, i.e. build relationships, build longer-term businesses, think long-term with your clients, long-term with your sales. However, in running sales in public companies, obviously short-term is extremely important because you've got quarter-to-quarter numbers. So that also falls into play. But with that being said, when you build a long-term relationship with your clients, you build the trust, you build the relationship, the needs, and it helps you become a more of a solution type of seller for your clients than just kind of throwing things at your clients left and right that might not necessarily fit within their needs. Listening to clients is extremely important, obviously, but there's some motto that I've said to many of my sellers and my team is to sell, don't tell. And I've been known to say that to quite a few of salespeople on my team, is that, listen, you don't always have to have the answer. You don't always have to be the tell my client what's going on and kind of be the expert when I don't necessarily know your needs or know or understand where you want to go. So sell, don't just tell clients things. Make sure that you have a consultative approach and an end game, but a way to listen to your clients and understand where you're going with that. So it's a little bit of a sell, don't tell philosophy that I have. And additionally, with my team, listening, as I mentioned before, is so important. And understand the needs of your clients, where they are today, where they're going tomorrow, and how you can help in their needs, and not just, again, just start selling things left and right to your client that just don't make any sense or just don't fit what they're trying to go. That just ruins your relationship. It ruins the trust in you, and it ruins you as being their go-to when they're looking for needs to help the business.
I love that. So sell, don't tell, and just make sure you listen and you adopt a consultative approach. Okay. So Adam, how do you make this training process something that's tangible and repeatable?
That's a good question. You got to make sure that it's kind of almost like this rinse and repeat type of thing where you can continually go. And I think that's about working with your sellers and continually rewarding, continually giving your team different goals to get to the next level. It's not a one and done type philosophy. That also falls into the way of working with clients and their long-term needs. To your question. So it is, hey, I've sold them this, or they're working with this product or this concept that I've worked with them, but that gets us to point A. I need to get to point B, C, and D. So there's a continuous growth and continuous relationship there to work with your client. But more to your question, to your point, it's really about continuing to reward your team, continuing to give them different goals. Did great this quarter. Next quarter, let's double. The next quarter after that, let's do this. And long-term goals for your sellers. And that helps kind of the continuous philosophy of them continuing to strive for more and continuing to not just love what he or she does, but continually grow within themselves to be better sellers, to be better team.
Okay, brill. And thinking back to like when you're looking for the right sellers, when you assess someone's credibility, what are the kind of metrics you expect them to focus on to ensure and to kind of paint that picture of, are they going to be good sellers? Do they have the focus on the right things?
Um, so that's a great question as well. Is um, you know where and how do you know you've got a good seller? What are you looking for, and what are kind of the metrics or the how do I look at to see that a seller is really getting to where I need to be? Obviously, it's a very metric based business or role in being a salesperson. You've got a
Hmm.
goal, you've got a number, you've got a certain amount of products you have to sell, or whatever the goals are. So that's number one, right? There is a specific metric there as opposed to some other type of roles in business that might not necessarily have a number to it.
Mm,
That's the easiest answer to it. And then trying to space that out amongst quarters, amongst goals, etc., and to strive with your clients. I look at with them of how are you doing with this client? Have you done more with this client this quarter, this quarter, this quarter? So continually growing within clients
mm,
and not just kind of all around, you know, um, growing. So that shows me that you are building as a seller a relationship within your clients. The client is trusting you, and you've got more to do with client A, client B, client C than just your total numbers growing, right? Because if
mm,
your total numbers growing, you're not growing with individual clients. At some point, you're just relying on one or two clients, and that may be trouble for you in the future. So I look at widespread growth, total numbers, of course, but individually, how you doing? I also look at troubled clients to easier clients. Are you
mm,
building the easier clients? Yes, but are you building the troubled clients and really starting to delve into them? And what are their problems and what are their issues? Are you making ground there? And that's important too, because a lot of times sales leaders dismiss, client, F and G because they just don't buy. Well, that's
mm,
great, but as a growing seller and as a growing part of the team, are you starting to kind of break in there and conquer in there? Don't just give up on client F and G and say forget it.
mm,
Over time, we'll start to see that you're changing as a seller, that you're building a relationship and building trust there, and really starting to get things through to that. That's a big metric for me. Is that if
mm,
you're breaking through to a client that's just been a lot of trouble over the years or months, etc., that's a big deal for me. And one thing I want to say too to your question, when I look at hiring sellers, which is so important. A lot of what I'm telling you is kind of that strive, that goal,
mm,
getting more. I love hiring sellers that are athletes. I love hiring sellers that know how to you know, win games is such not the right term, but really know how to strive to get more, strive to get the goal, strive to win this. And I think that's a great attribute in a seller to have is someone who has that athletic mentality in them to know and to strive for more. And that is something that is very important for me when I look at sellers, when I talk to them about kind of the athletic type of selling or winning games, he or she gets it. That's interesting.
mm. Do you think you're able to see that trait in someone who hasn't played a sport or like been super competitive in their career?
That's a good question. No, I mean, look, there's not everyone's an athlete, of course, but
Hmm.
no, I think it's just again, it's just the mentality of striving to a goal, winning, working as a team,
Mm,
or how to bring the whole offense together to move forward to score, or holding your line in the defensive world of making sure that you hold your product or your strategy strong. Like everyone understands that concept, whether you're an athlete or not. It's just a different way of thinking.
mm,
But no, I think people understand that, and I think it's a great way when I look at business and when I look at hiring a team and building a team. And that's a really cool way to kind of look at my strategy
mm.
as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Adam, tell me more about your leadership style. So, how do you find that balance between letting your sellers take their like consultative approach and be super independent, but also giving them that support when they need it?
Hmm. So, um, how to know is your question, or
How
the
do
kind
you
of
find
leader?
that balance? How do you ensure that your reps get what they need, but also they have that space to be super consultative, be
Yeah,
super entrepreneurial?
yeah, and that's a great question. That's an art in itself, right?
Mm,
Is when are you comfortable letting go of the reins a little bit with a great seller on your team where, I don't necessarily have to be as hands-on or as in the weeds of their business as some of the other sellers. That's an art in itself.
Mm.
Look, again, as I mentioned before, it's a numbers-based, position or role to be a salesperson. So that's the easiest way to know, right? If your numbers are good and to the metrics we've talked about, if you're getting into new clients and starting to break through some, and you're building the continuous clients,
Mm.
that's great. That's a metric to say, hey, you're doing what you need to do. You're reaching your numbers. You're growing every quarter. I don't necessarily have. Why would I waste my time as a leader if I know you're reaching your goals and striving
Mm.
to win, to score those goals, to do what we need to do, when I really have other clients who are doing, I'm sorry, other sellers who are doing okay, but I know they can do more with certain clients. So
Mhm.
um, again, I look right at the metrics and right at the numbers and how you're doing. It's the trust I have in you as someone on my team.
Mhm.
It's the trust I have in you as a seller and
Mm.
how your relationships are with their clients. And look, I talk to clients all the time too. A good sales leader, in my mind, does not stay far away from the client base and has
Mm.
to be feet on the ground sometimes too. So believe me, clients will tell you if there's a concern, if there's an
Mm.
issue, if there's a problem with a seller, and of course, they'll also tell you when they love a seller. And there's nothing that brings a better smile on my face when you're out on a sales call or just having dinner with a client and they're saying, I really like Dan or I really
Mm.
like John, like they're great. That's great. And when you have stuff like that and the numbers match and there's continuous growth there, great. I mean, look, let's talk about a bigger project, a bigger deal with you because you love
Mhm.
working with us. We've got solutions. You love our seller, and that's also a sign for me to build more with them as well. But those are things I look at very strongly. And as I mentioned before about the entrepreneurial thinking, again, that all brings
Mhm.
you back to when the numbers are good, when the clients are happy, when you're giving solutions, that you have that entrepreneurial spirit in you, and you are being an entrepreneurial seller, and you're doing what needs to be
Mm. Okay. How do you make your B reps into A reps? So you've got a lot of people who are doing really well, and you're now focusing on those who need a little bit more help. How do you cross pollinate and make sure majority of your team are A players?
done. Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that's a great exercise for sales leaders. Is look, let's just face the facts. Not everybody's an A player.
Mm.
Not everybody is an A seller. It's just not in his or her DNA. It's just not the type of person. But am I getting the best out of this seller that I can? Where this person is contributing to the bottom line, to the goal of
Mhm.
what we need to do, and also, frankly, when you're running a team, the other sellers who, believe me, if you have shared numbers or others can see, if I have a seller that's doing great and they see another one that's kind of lagging behind, but there's some sort of a combined goal, they're going to get on. My case as a leader, say, why is this person still here, or why is this person even better to help us all grow?
Mm.
So I've seen that phenomenon quite a few times in my career as well as a leader. Look, having A players, wonderful, great. Getting B players to A, even C to B players, that is where the spending more time with them, and that is where you may have to do joint sales calls, and that is where you have to be more of a hands-on teacher with that type of seller. Look, it could be because the person is quote unquote a junior seller, may be new, may needs to learn, may not be an expert in the space. I mean, you got to find the reason, right?
Mm.
And if you find out the reasons, it's just quote unquote how this person is and who they are, then maybe it's not the right seller. If this person is a C and you're trying to get them to a B or an A, it may not be there. You may just
Mm.
have to move on. But if it's a B player who just needs to learn, become more of an expert, it's really working with that seller and spending time with them, going on joint sales calls. I do a lot of teaching with my team on, I ask a lot of questions, but I don't ask questions to kind of be like, you're on the spot.
Mm.
I ask questions to help my sellers, especially these kind of, to your point, the B to get them to A sellers, of how would you do in this situation? Oh, that's okay. Let me give you another idea. That type of thing, and give them scenarios and ideas and concepts where they can feel more empowered to go
Mhm.
sell, where he or she can feel as if, you know what, those are some good answers. Let me go back to my client and see what I could do. So I like to kind of work with those sellers where I can give them more ideas and give them kind of different ways of thinking. I like to say, and it's very cliche, we say think outside the box, but it's think a little bit differently in yourself. Think a bit
Mm,
about, is the way you're going in your cell and it's just not resonating, or the way you're going, are you not comfortable with it? Are you not feeling secure with it? Do you feel that your clients are just giving you the kind of the glance over? If that's happening, are you engaging with them? Are you have a good relationship with them? We go through all that.
mhm,
But then it is, look, if they like you and they're just not buying, let's think differently in how we're selling. Let's think differently on our relationship. Let's think differently on our, positioning with the client. And that is something that I think uh, those B type of players that you mentioned, or B sellers, makes them feel, as I mentioned, empowered to kind
mhm,
of sell more. And look, it's a game, but it's, as I mentioned about the athletic spirit and the mentality. You know, he or she wants to win. He or she wants to get that, and I make it. How can I help you to get there? So it's a lot of back and forth. It's a lot of discussion, and look, sellers and people who work with me are um, I need and want to develop good relationships with my team.
mhm,
Okay, and that's important. And that is, I don't want to be a glazed over, um, boss or person you work with that doesn't have feelings with you, or for you to help you. I want you to grow. When you
mhm,
grow as a seller, it makes me as a leader feel better every day. So
mm.
that's my goal, to make you better and you empowered as a seller. So that's a huge challenge for me. Make your B sellers and your B players A players.
Mm. Because you want them to think outside the box, but it's about empowering them to do that themselves and like think about what direction they need to go in. Again, back to that entrepreneurial, always thinking one
Right.
step ahead. That's
with
really cool.
with my ideas, if I may, with my ideas to help them think that way,
Mm,
because you have to be careful. And I've been there where, okay, I'll think outside the box, Adam, and
mhm,
great, and entrepreneurial, and then he or she will come back with some just wild, crazy. I don't think that's the solution your client wants. Are you listening correct,
mhm,
correctly to your client? Let's try this. Let's try that. But there still has to be that kind of back and forth relationship with your seller, that to empower them to think.
mm. Brill. Okay. Adam, last question for you. So, if you were in a room full of transformational business leaders, what's that one burning question that you'd want an answer to?
um, what's the one thing I would want an answer to from transformational leaders?
Yep, other leaders
um,
like you.
I think I always, um, in my career, I feel that I've always been a disruptor. I feel that
Mm,
I've always been a seller or running businesses that disrupt the status quo. And one thing I've always want to ask transformational leaders is, um, how did you get over that hump? How did you get over that thinking where, I've said it quite a few times too, that innovation is and disruption is now cool. A
mhm,
couple of years ago, it was like, get away from me. My business is fine. This is really in advertising, media, connected TV, the world I'm in.
mhm,
Um, but changing the status quo of media was like a no-go for me years ago. Now
mhm.
it's kind of cool, and you have to disrupt it. Everyone's disrupting it in the business I'm in. When did you feel, as a transformational leader, you had to go over that hump? You had to change, you had to disrupt, or your business was not going to last. And I
Mm,
think that's something I always like to think about, is when do you got to go forward and disrupt. Timing is so important in business.
mhm,
And I think that's something for me, specifically in the businesses I've run and I've led and always been in. They're always outside the box, advanced sales opportunities, changing traditional media to connected TV, changing the traditional media model, um, that sort of stuff. And when was the right time to do it?
mhm.
And when did you feel, if I don't do it now, I'm going to be in trouble in a year or two or three? And
Mm.
I think that's important. I always want to ask transformational leaders, when was the time?